Hi, and welcome to the demo video for QOOBIT's CRU Waypoint. To get started, we want to make sure that our plugin is active, so we're going to navigate to our plugins and do a quick search for Q, and you should see our CRU Waypoint plugin here listed in the plugins. Make sure that it is in fact checked off. If you do have it off, once you've checked it off, you may need to restart the editor for the changes to take effect. Now that you've activated it and restarted the editor, you should see a menu at the top that says QOOBIT, Animation, Control Rig Utility, and CRU Waypoint. We're going to click this to make sure that the widget is active, and we're going to move on to setting up our sequencer. So in our sequencer here right now, we have a copy of Manny, and we've just loaded the default running animation from the mannequin pack. And we can see that the animation is actually just running in Spot. For us to maximize the abilities of the CRU waypoint, we do need to ensure that we are using an animation that is moving forward with root motion. So to get this enabled, we can actually just navigate to the animation here. We're going to open it up, and we're going to do a quick search in the asset details for root. And if we toggle on the enable root motion and disable the force root lock, you should see that Manny is already moving in the viewport here. And if we go back to here, we'll see that Manny is in fact actually running forward and moving and no longer running in Spot. If you don't want to ruin the original animation by saving these changes directly on it, you can duplicate it and then make sure we go in, and then we have our duplicate here that has the new settings. We save it, and then we can undo the settings on the original one and just leave that alone. And instead we'll swap this in, and let's use the copy now instead of the one that came with the plugin. All right, now we have this Manny running forward. We can take a look at our widget. And if you are using the widget and you have been making changes to the sequencer here, you may want to press reload on the actor list or reload the entire widget entirely to make sure we have the latest number of actors shown in the actor list here. Now with Manny selected, we can click attach, and it will attach a layered control rig of MCR waypoint onto the sequencer, and you can see that it's still running the same animation. But now we have some differences. You can see that by default, we have the target end selected, which is this blue arrow that is at the end of the run cycle. And we also have this green star here, which is this control that is defining the settings of the waypoint. So inside the settings, we have the ability to adjust the control sizes, and we can also change if we want specific controls to be influenced in the FBIK that is running in the waypoint. So if you also don't want to navigate inside of here for some of these settings, you can also change the control sizes from our widget here. So if we drag it out, you can see that the size is changing, and we can also toggle debug mode if you have wanted to look at how it's working underneath the hood. So leaving this alone, we'll come back to here, and you can see that if we toggle the control rig on and off, the animation is still intact. But now we can take a look at the target end control now, and we can start moving and playing with this endpoint. So if we drag this back, you can see that we still have the animation running, but now it's running in smaller steps, and it's reaching the target. Likewise, we can rotate it and move it to a new destination. Just move it over here a bit, and you'll see that the same animation runs into this new direction with the rotation applied as well. On top of this, if you wanted to, you can also animate an offset for each bone that's attached to the FBIK. So we can move the hands along the path and have it kind of persist across the retargeted animation here as well. So with this setup now, we can also do additional setups if we want to reset our settings. So if you ever wanted to get it back to the original setup with the frame handles and also back to the source animation, you can click the snap button, and then it will reset it to the start and end frames. If you want to get rid of it altogether, you can also press the delete, and it will delete down to here. Now, if you're using a Mixamo character, that doesn't have a root bone, we can use another modular control rig that we've set up for you to make it work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to disable Mani, and we're going to enable our Mixamo Michelle down here that has our crouching walk animation that we downloaded from Mixamo as well. And what we're going to do is from here, we're also going to hit refresh. So since we just swapped the actors in our sequencer, we want to make sure we grab the correct actor now. So with it updated, we're going to pick a custom modular rig, and we're going to search for Mixamo, and you should see an MCR Waypoint Mixamo here. Now, with the setup we have right now, if we did click attach, which we'll do right now, you'll see that we actually don't get the intended results, where the target end isn't actually pinned to the last frame. And the reason for this is because our last handle is set out of range, and there's no way for it to solve the proper last frame transform based on the state of the animation. So what we want to do instead is we want to press right square bracket to make our handles match the animation range. I'm going to delete it, and we're going to reattach it again. All right, now with it reattached, you can see that the target end is now correctly at the end location, and it's still working on the Mixamo character because we have a projected root transform. That doesn't happen on the bone, but we have it solved inside of the modular control rig as an option. So similar to before, we can have this retarget here set up to the last frame, and it will move to this new location. And we still have the flexibility to change our control sizes and also adjust on a per control basis in our layered control rig. All right, if you are setting up your own modular control rig for this setup, we'll show an example here of doing this for Mixamo Michelle as well. We're going to navigate to the skeletal mesh, and we're going to right click. Just delete the old modular rig here. We're going to right click, and we're going to go create modular rig. All right, now that we have created a new modular rig, we're going to dive into it. And we're going to delete the root module here that's been pre-populated. Inside of here, we're going to search for Waypoint, which is our included control rig module that we have as part of our plugin. And we're going to drag and drop it onto the root bone here. So we're going to drag and drop onto the hips, sorry, not the hips bone, since we don't have a root bone. And from here, we're going to hit hips for the transfer bone and make sure that we have it here as well. And if you want to visualize it, you can go into here and toggle all hierarchy so that we can visualize the bones. And we're going to pick our bones here for the setup. So we can pick hips again for the bones, but even if we don't pick it, it will get included into the control set for the spawn bones. But what we're going to do now is we're going to pick the left hand, the right hand, the left foot, and the right foot. With these 4 bones selected, you can now navigate to here and click Use Selected. If you are manually clicking the plus button, it might get a little bit buggy, or using the details panel. This I found is the most stable way to add an array of bones inside of modular control rigs, is just to select them from the rig hierarchy and press the Use Selected here. Great. Now we have the bones selected, and we want to make sure that we select and show both of the optional and the secondary connectors always, just so that we have a good idea of what's been set up. And if it hasn't been set up correctly, we can take a look at it in more detail. So we're going to hit compile, and we can see here that it's not refreshing correctly all the time, but we're going to take a look at our hip control right here. This is technically the root setup as well, but since we don't have a root and we need this to project down to the ground, the only difference is we need to change our module here to use spawn root control. So we're going to hit spawn root control, and you can see that now the hips are now located at the ground now. So that's the only difference that we've set up with the Mani and the Mixamo character. So if we take a look at our default provided Waypoint Mixamo here, you can see that it is actually set up in the same way as well. So after opening it, we're going to click secondary connectors and optional connectors. And you can see that it is set up with the same array list for the bones here as well. You can feel free to explore different bone combinations, but in general, we recommend having the pelvis and the hands and the feet in there. And that way you'll get a setup that looks something like this, that you're able to control with the waypoint. If you are getting some bugs where you can't see the bones listed here or in the details panel anymore, try clicking the add element button or deleting the list and re-adding it from the add element, and it should reveal itself again. You may need to restart editor to see some of the changes update, but there is kind of some known bugs that happen with arrays inside of modular control rig. And similarly, if we take a look at our main one that we set up for Manny, this one also works for metahumans as well. So if we take a reveal at the secondary and the optional connectors, it is set up in a very similar way, with the only two differences being that we have attached the module at the root bone, and we have the transfer still set to the hips or the pelvis in this case, but we've also added the pelvis to our bones list because we need that as the yellow manipulator here for the FBIK, so that we have the root with the 4 arrows at the bottom, and then we have the pelvis and the hands and the feet for the Manny and MetaHuman workflows. In this example here, we have same shared take cover animation here. That is just simply with the root motion and the character turning with the back facing towards a wall, for example. And we've taken it and we've placed it on 3 copies of Manny. And you can see that we've just adjusted the target end positions to different positions around the cube where it will land. And we just simply scrub. You can see that it's just landing with the same animation with different contexts. In this specific example, though, we did turn off the hand influence. You can see that the cubes aren't actually lined up with the hands for 2 and 3 here. So this is the second and the third Manny here. But the cubes are lined up for the first Manny. So to turn off the hand influence, we can just go into here. We can pick our specific actor and we pick our settings here. And you'll see that we have the hand strength turned down to 0. Normally, all of the strength are set to 1 for the FBIK setup. But you can see here we turn off the hands. As you can see that as we scrub, the controls drift pretty far away from the intended locations. So we'll see it in action with it set to 1 as an example. So this is 1 being the full strength. And you'll see that if we take a look at it closer, 1 second, if we select this is Manny 2. You'll see that the hands look a bit goofy as it's flying around erratically, and this is not the results we want. So if you are getting some of this in the retarget from the start to end for the hands, you may want to consider turning off the influence of specific controls in the FBIK. So coming back into here, we're going to go back into the settings, and we're going to turn this down to 0 and 0, and it's going to be more representative of the original animation. So in this case, only the feet are kind of retargeted with the root, and the hands are kind of left alone to the original animation. And similarly, we have another example here with Mixamo running around different variants as well. You can see that we just have a duplicate, the same crouch animation with different target locations, and you can get some pretty neat results out of the box with very minimal clicks, just selecting a character, throwing on a Mixamo or a standard control rig. And that covers most of the basic tutorials for our Waypoint plugin for QOOBIT CRU Waypoint. And if you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord or leave a comment below in our video, and hope to see you guys building some cool stuff with our plugin. Thanks.